Hey guys, Omni here. We got a breakdown from New Rockstars for the first episode of Marvel Studios' What If. We reacted to the episode itself over on the channel. If you want to check that out, we got that up right now. But I had a lot of fun with it. You know, the whole Captain Carter aspect, you know, this kind of like speed run through the first Avenger had certain outcomes been different, and it was a lot of fun. I liked it quite a bit. The energy, the callbacks. It was just a nice little bump into what we can kind of expect going forward as we get into some crazier, more unfamiliar stories is what I'm hoping. You know, obviously the zombie one is the one I'm kind of waiting to see how that whole thing comes about in the Peter Parker episode. But anyway, let's see what Eric Voss has to say. If you are not subscribed to New Rockstars, you should do that. You should do yourself a favor and check them out. Anyway, guys, here we go.
Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of What If Episode 1, which ponders a question: what if Peggy Carter became a super soldier instead of Steve Rogers? But also, what if Steve Rogers became the first Iron Man? What if Nick Fury and Hawkeye had to clean squid chunks out of the Project Pegasus basement? And what if Jeffrey Wright was watching you from space right now? You'd prefer that, wouldn't you? I was honestly pretty surprised how many MCU connections and mythology
only if I could hear him
work into this
in a constant voiceover in my head.
The Easter eggs and subtle animation details
He's
that
got
you
a
might
smooth
have missed,
voice, man.
and some theories for how this really could tie into the live-action MCU, as the show's creators have indicated Marvel Studios plans to do. This video is sponsored by our friends at Heroes Journal. More on them later. We open on the Marvel Studios title, which shifts into animated brushstrokes as a way of signaling to us that we are still in the Marvel Cinematic Universe of the films, with the voices of mostly the same actors or actors trying to emulate them, just one that visually appears in a different medium, similar to how animated Star Wars series are every bit as canon as the films in The Mandalorian are. The voice of Jeffrey Wright as Uatu the Watcher guides us through the opening titles.
Time, space, reality. It's more than a linear path.
Time, space, and reality are all abstract concepts with Infinity Stone counterparts, and maybe also a clue for the universal constants that this series will treat as variables instead, placing characters in variable times, variable points in space, variable realities. Now, the Watchers are Marvel cosmic entities who observe and record history throughout the multiverse. Uatu the Watcher is assigned to our universe, which is why Uatu is the one narrating to us right now. Watchers actually made live-action cameos in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. They were stuck listening to Stan Lee's stories, which was a nod to the fan theory that Stan Lee's various MCU cameos could have made him Uatu. Really, Stan Lee was probably closer to entities like the One Above All, which was an unseen meta figure that was likened to artist Jack Kirby. But Uatu's appearance here is a red outlined silhouette in space, not the flesh-colored heads of the comics. He actually looks more like the Marvel entity known as Eternity, which was the living embodiment of the universe itself. A shattered prism shows moments from the upcoming season, and one of those moments, Captain Carter itself, contains infinite variables within, reflecting how this one altered choice by Peggy Carter also leads to several other variances that we see in this episode, and can imagine beyond this episode's ending. Then we open on the events of the first Cap film, which was itself visually stylized with desaturation to evoke a nostalgic quality. The animation on What If is designed with the same idea in mind, with director Brian Andrews citing the work of artist J.C. Leyendecker from the 1920s and 30s for simple but lifelike 2D characters. And that warmness is heightened in this opening scene with
I
this
really
random
like
bright
the art
beam of
style.
sunlight
Yeah.
on Steve, even though the scene that they base it on was in a windowless, dimly lit lab. But also during that opening prologue, we dissolve from Cap's shield to the planet of Earth, superimposing the shield over the entire world, the way the shield metaphorically became a suit of armor around the world. Haley Atwell returns to voice Peggy Carter. Steve is actually voiced by actor Josh Keaton, who sounds a hell of a lot like Chris Evans does. Stanley Tucci and Dominic Cooper return as Dr. Erskine and Howard Stark, and Tommy Lee Jones' character Colonel Phillips appears, but he doesn't
Gets
speak.
shot.
Then the key variant moment occurs.
No, I'd prefer to stay.
There. That's the moment that created a new universe.
Now that was a throwaway line in the original Captain America film.
Agent Carter, don't you think you would be more comfortable in the booth?
Oh, yes, of course. Sorry.
But whereas Peggy watched from the observation deck there, here she stays, which also leads to everyone else who was in that booth staying on the floor too, including the Hydra assassin, whose bomb is now right beside Erskine's foot, causing him to get killed in the blast, not be shot by him right after. Colonel Phillips also gets shot and killed, along with Steve, though he survives, and Peggy shoots and kills kills the assassin right there, preventing the need for a street chase that superpowered Steve Rogers would have gone on. But remember, in that movie, Peggy Carter had that assassin dead in her sights, and she would have killed him had Steve not tackled her. So Peggy steps into the chamber, powering herself up in a sequence matching the storyboard of the film.
I love the detail, man. I love it.
Colonel Flynn, a new character voiced by Bradley Whitford, chews her out afterwards.
Every last drop of that Dr. Erskine serum went into you. And if we get lucky, someday your blood might tell us how to make a real super soldier.
Yeah, look at those vials of blood they're taking out. By my count, I see 19 of them plus 2 more that they're doing. Just seems like a whole bunch of loose ends that could set up future government experiments with Peggy Carter's blood. Now in the live action MCU, the attempts to restart the super soldier experiment included General Ross turning Bruce Banner into the Hulk, along with Emil Blonsky into a super soldier who eventually became Abomination. And according to the Falcon the Winter Soldier, there were similar experiments going on linked with Isaiah Bradley. But in this case, Peggy Carter's blood could be the basis of characters like Thaddeus Ross becoming Red Hulk. Maybe even Bruce Banner's cousin Jennifer Walters becoming She-Hulk. Then Peggy boxes and knocks the bag off the rigging, just like live action Steve did when he was restless. And she kickflips a weight and frisbees it into the wall, just like the big kickflip move in Captain America Winter Soldier, and she's just showing that she is ready for the shield. Meanwhile, wounded Steve does physical therapy similar to Rhodey at the end of Civil War, but like Rhodey, Steve has a future in a Stark designed armored suit. Then on to the Turnsburg Church, which actually opened the first Captain America film, and compared to that establishing shot, now the church's front light is not lit. But still, Schmidt rolls up in his Roadster with the same close-up of
it looked lit to me.
The Hydra logo. Now Ross Marquand voices Red Skull. He actually took over the role from Hugo Weaving when Red Skull returned in Infinity War. The wooden engraving of the Yggdrasil Worlds tree here is way bigger, and Schmidt's hand runs across a new section that was not in the film, a ring with the Tesseract in the middle and tentacles snaking out. Of course, foreshadowing how he will use the Tesseract to open a portal for the interdimensional champion to arrive through. But really, all of this is a way of showing that here, Schmidt's end goal for the Tesseract is not world domination under the Hydra flag, really reaching out into the cosmos, which is a bit ironic because in the movie, Red Skull did end up blasted out into space, but here he ends up dead on Earth. Peggy, Howard, and Colonel Flynn review the Tesseract in a textbook, and above that illustration are some Norse runes. And as was the case with Loki, Marvel's Norse alphabet is all over the place because this seems to translate to gibberish. But the caption beneath is Italian that translates to the hypercube in the true shape of the space stone. Whoa! The fact that the Tesseract contained an Infinity Stone did not seem to be public knowledge. Though who knows? This textbook could contain some references or citations from the Italian Book of Cagliostro, which contained knowledge about the Time Stone in the Eye of Agamotto. So I don't know, maybe Infinity Stones were some ancient knowledge on Earth, just known by certain people. Howard gives her her new suit in a box labeled Howard's designer clothing, and also her own shield, which instead of the stars and stripes now bears the iconography of the Union Jack. And notice how there's a blue stripe on the outer edge instead of the red one on Cap's shield. Now the Hero's Journal is here to help you accomplish your goals by turning them into a quest based on Goals CEO, or click the link in the description and use promo code NEWROCKSTARS for your 10% off. So Carter suits up and stops Arnim Zola at Berlin's Brandenburg Gate, and we hear her theme music. Which is a slightly altered version of the Captain America theme. Again, I really like how they use
such
lighting,
a good theme.
in this case, to give dimension to these otherwise 2D characters, to make their movements look more fluid and pop off the screen. Like, notice how whenever Carter makes a power move, she's always illuminated by one of the headlights of one of the cars she's stopping or has just flipped over. The end result is to outline her in this white glow and also creating a
this is a good scene.
Shield. Carter walks away from this with the Tesseract, and Howard uses it to power the Hydra Stomper armor for Steve. Now, I'm not sure why it would have to be Steve who gets to pilot it. I don't know, having a tiny test pilot would be useful to lighten the overall load. Now, in the film, Howard does experiment briefly on the Tesseract for weapons purposes, but while this episode doesn't really go into it, it is hugely significant for Howard to build a flying suit of armor, essentially an Iron Man Mark I prototype, decades before his son would do so. Carter rescues the 107th, approaching on a motorcycle, placing her shield in front of her, just like how Steve does in the other scene in the movie. And inside, we meet the Howling Commandos, including Dum Dum Dugan. Actually, Neil McDonough returns to voice him here. There's also James Montgomery Falsworth, Gabe Jones, Jacques Denier, Jim Jim Morita, and Bucky Barnes. Sebastian Stan voices a few one-liners in this episode that, well, reminded me that I'm an adult watching a kid's show. There's the famous door opening shot from the film, and Steve drops in with the Hydra Stomper. Actually, I love how inside his face appears surrounded by a heads-up display, similar to the close-ups of Tony Stark inside the Iron Man
Except
helmet.
it's actual, like,
Digital projections,
valves.
they're all analog dials.
Dials.
And meters. He zaps a tank
Valves.
and it blows up, but for one frame, the blast recolors the shot in all white and then all black. Just a cool way of showing the brightness of the explosion that is powered by an Infinity Stone. Steve says,
Let's hear it for Captain Carter!
which Bucky said for Steve in the movie.
Let's hear it for Captain America!
And then during a swing music montage, there's a fun tracking shot that follows Carter all the way from
Gosh, this
outside
was so
through
good.
the cockpit of a German plane, not cutting, as she fights her way through the cabin, then up through the hatch, and then down the tail. Some fun storyboarded action here. A Nazi general snaps at Red Skull.
Captain Carter and this so-called Hydra Stomper are wreaking havoc.
This is actually a vocal cameo by SNL actor turned SNL announcer Daryl Hammond. Carter and Rogers share a drink.
I miss a good whiskey, but the serum doesn't allow me to feel the effects.
Kind of a reversal of the scene in the film.
I can't get
Yeah.
drunk. Did you know that?
Your metabolism burns 4 times faster than the average person.
Then they stage this train mission, just like the one in the film, but Carter calls it here Operation Where Eagles Dare, a reference to the 1968 World War II film that was also set in the Alps. And Bucky almost falls as he does in the live-action version, but Carter saves him.
You almost ripped my arm off.
Rip my arm off!
Yeah, we get it, Bucky. You lose your arm. But in this case, it is Steve who dies, seemingly, but actually falls into Hydra's clutches. Carter comes back and interrogates Zola, with Toby Jones returning to voice the character.
I will tell you nothing.
He told me everything.
And Carter points to
I love
Castle
those kinds of
Crake on
cuts,
the
man.
map, a name evoking the word Kraken, which is the sea monster of legend, with similar giant tentacles as the interdimensional beast that they end up facing. There's another long oneer that follows Carter running through the Black Forest, over the castle walls, taking down the guards, and then opening the gate for the others to come through. Red Skull uses the Tesseract to open a portal decades before S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Project Pegasus would use it the same way. This tentacled creature with a mouth full of sharp teeth is never named. I guess it's similar to the interdimensional beast called the Obelisk in Guardians Volume 2, but I'm thinking it could be one of the Elder Gods or many angled ones from the 2009-2010 Realm of Kings Marvel comics that feature Quasar, the Guardians of the Galaxy,
Probably.
Nova, Project Pegasus versus the Revengers. The many angled ones are Lovecraftian interdimensional beings that look a lot like this. One of them is Shuma Gorath, who's actually rumored to appear in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. See,
Yeah.
I know this multiverse stuff is getting
I don't know
harder and
about that
harder to
one, though.
understand. But so far, in the Marvel Multiverse, it seems like you have timelines and universes, which are realities parallel to our own that sometimes branch off from each other to form new ones, as we saw in Loki. But then in between those timelines, you have what Marvel seems to be calling dimensions and realms that they say are beyond space and time. And these are the surreal acid trips
Right.
that we see like
Okay.
in the Doctor Strange movies. The
Because we
dark
talked about
dimension,
that a
also
little
the
bit
quantum realm.
in
And I think
our
a dimension
Loki
like this
discussions.
is where the many angled ones reside. That could explain how Peggy Carter ended up going through that dimension to end up in the present day, much like Scott Lang's quantum realm time dilation in Avengers Endgame. Now, Howard cannot read the German controls, but they translate to voltage, resistance, capacity, charge, close, load, reduction, power supply, overwrite, and hydropower. Actually, when he cranks up that close lever, that is when the portal begins to close. He actually mentioned spending a weekend with Hedy Lamarr, who is an Austrian-born American actress who's actually a major asset to the Allied war effort. She co-invented a radio guidance system that was intended for torpedoes, and she got a ton of war bonds sold. So yeah, someone you could imagine Howard Stark bragging about hanging out with. Carter picks up a sword, and with her shield, she just looks very much like an English knight. Now, there is a
Yeah.
Captain Britain in the Marvel Comics, Brian Braddock, who leads the interdimensional Captain Britain Corps, and Peggy actually mentioned Braddock in an off-screen line in Endgame. If we're talking about futures for Captain Carter, I would love to see her organize a Captain Britain Corps. Rogers and Carter's rain check dance date from the movie comes back here, except Carter is the one sacrificing herself, except she doesn't die or go into ice. She immediately transports into the future. The portal opened by the Tesseract in the Project Pegasus basement, and what looks like the days before Loki's arrival via that same portal in Avengers. Samuel L. Jackson and Jeremy Renner return to voice Nick Fury and Clint Barton, and Carter says,
we won the war.
Which is a bit of irony, considering she has arrived just in time to help the Avengers fight Loki's invasion. Her war is really just beginning. Now again, the producers plan to make Captain Carter a returning hero in this series. She's confirmed to be in an episode for season 2, and trailer footage shows her talking to Doctor Strange in a different episode, maybe from this season.
I remember that.
I would love to see a cameo of her in live action, like drifting in the background of the Multiverse of Madness, fighting that tentacled beast like Gandalf fighting the Balrog. But that might just be me.
There is a rumor that she's going to pop up in Multiverse of Madness, but take these rumors as you will, as always, because people just spit these things out left and right. Yeah, I mean, it was a fun little breakdown. I know some people thought, I've seen some people in the comments mention that might be Shumagorath, but I don't know. Tentacles match up, add up, line up there, but like, I don't know. The overall design didn't really evoke it for me. We know Shumagorath is coming, or at least it's I wouldn't call it confirmed, but heavily implied to be coming. I don't know if it's one of those things that's like somebody just spat on the internet or whatever, but that's like a pretty heavy popular opinion thing that's been floating around for a while. Them kind of discussing the future of any of these characters moving forward. I feel like there's like a strong chance some of them will pop up in Multiverse of Madness, at least in quick cameos or quick little nods or background things as they're like exploring the multiverse or something like that. I feel like it's almost like a definite. Not to get anybody's hopes up. I mean, I'm not basing this off of anything that I've heard. I just think that would make the most sense to kind of see something play out like that to accentuate it. I mean, we know they're all kind of tied in together, so it just makes sense. I mean, we got a Doctor Strange variant in here. We've got Loki confirmed to be popping up in it, and you know, all the others, everything else that's going to be happening too. Man, it's like it feels like it would be make the most sense for people to show up in that one. But guys, I don't really have too much to say. A lot of the parallels we saw in this were callbacks to the original first Avenger, just kind of spins on it, twists on it, just kind of reversing a lot of the roles, a lot of meta in-humor jokes from like Bucky about what would have happened had Steve been Captain America during this period instead. It was just a fun little ride, man. The art style is probably my favorite thing about it, because like Eric pointed out, there's a lot of great motifs and techniques that they use to make it feel three-dimensional and come to life, while also having these beautifully stylized images, with the way that they utilize the lighting, especially, and the paint strokes. So like I called out in the reaction itself, it's like, you know, there's a lot of detail in the character models that we're seeing, but the backgrounds are still kind of like these paintings, with the brush strokes you can see in certain images. And I think it's creates a really interesting aesthetic for these what would otherwise be like dreamlike scenarios, these what ifs, this painted nostalgia that they pointed out in the beginning about what they were referencing as far as their inspiration for the art direction for the episode. It just makes me excited to see what they do with the next episodes as well, and just see how they kind of bring them to life and how those techniques carry over, and we see these different worlds and outcomes and settings and characters. It's a lot of fun, man. This series definitely jumped up on my excitement list after. Well, I said this before. I was definitely going to be watching it 100%. I was really looking forward to it as this like fun little side thing. But once once Loki happened, I was like, oh shit. And then What If is next. I was like, that's gotta not be a coincidence. And then we keep hearing this stuff about how they're playing up into it. These are canon universes. These are things that are out there in the multiverse now. I was like, it just makes it more exciting. Then I thought the first episode was a lot of fun. So it definitely got me hyped up for what they're going to do down the road. But yeah, guys, what did you think of this? What was your favorite Easter egg? What are some maybe you caught that maybe Eric didn't? Make sure you follow New Rockstars if you're not already. And if you like this, subscribe to my channel if you want. But guys, let's sound off the comments and carry on that conversation after the video. If you want to, we can have that conversation in our Discord, or you can follow me on all my socials. Links to all those are in the description of this video. I want to shout out our channel legends, Mandy Sherritt, Ryan Karen, Jason Coleman, and Philly Vane. Thank you guys so much for your support. But that's it for this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.